Our favorite team of assholes are back.
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for the 15th film of the MCU. And it's going to be for the 15th film of the Infinity Saga in general. And it was the next second installments of the MCU, the fourth second installment of the MCU. And it was for a sequel to film from Phase 2. And technically speaking, ironically, this sequel would actually be set during Phase 2, as it took place seconds after its previous film's ending. That's going to be 2017's Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 2, directed by James Gunn. So what's the plot of this? Well, after saving Xandar from Rowan's wrath, the Guardians are now recognized as heroes. Now the team must help their leader Star-Lord uncover the truth behind his true heritage. Along the way, old foes turn to allies and betrayal is blooming, and the Guardians find that they are up against a devastating new menace who is out to rule the galaxy. So, how was this made? Well, in May 2014, Bob Iger stated he felt the first Guardians of the Galaxy film had strong franchise potential, and he added that their goal is to create another Avengers. James Gunn, who directed and co-wrote the first film, said he would like to return for a sequel, and that he was contractually obligated to if asked. The next month, producer Kevin Feige said there were places that they could take the franchise and they had ideas where they'd like to go. And based on the wide array of characters, worlds, and storylines from the comics, in July 2014, Guardians of the Galaxy screenwriter Nicole Perman confirmed a sequel, stating it was going to happen. Given the positive internal response to the first film at Disney, is that the Gunn would write and direct. At San Diego Comic-Con International soon after, a sequel was given a release date for July 28, 2017. Gunn had begun work on the film within a month and said that it would include at least one new Guardian from the comics. In October, Gunn confirmed that all 5 original Guardians would return for the sequel, along with other supporting characters, and the release date would instead be bumped up to May 5, 2017. In the following months, Michael Rooker even said that he would return as Yondu and was looking forward to exploring new areas of the characters. Then Chris Pratt played Star-Lord in the first one, confirmed the sequel would be one of his next projects, and Bradley Cooper even expressed interest and excitement when asked if he would return as Rocket. Vin Diesel even confirmed he would return as Groot. Then in March 2015, Gunn revealed that filming would take place in Atlanta, Georgia, with major crew changes from the first film, and that his brother Sean Gunn would return as Kraglin alongside Karen Gillan as Nebula. He explained that his relationship with Marvel and that the company let him go and do his thing, and he truly listened to their notes and ideas. He had never been told to put in any character plot on him at all. When they trust him, they have to give him a wide berth, and they just fit. Then in May, Gunn said the sequel would feature fewer characters than the first film, and that he had planned to introduce 2 major characters in the script, Mantis and Adam Warlock. Talks had begun with an actor Gunn had in mind to portray Mantis, while he had decided to remove Warlock due to the film getting too busy. And he explained that one of the things with Guardians of the Galaxy was not to add a bunch of characters, not to make it bigger than that, but to go deeper with the characters, and getting to know them more emotionally. And everything was just getting too sprawling, too crazy for him in those superhero comic films. And Gunn even added that he adored what he had done with him, and thinks they did something really creative and neat with Adam Warlock, but it was one character too many, and he didn't want to lose Mantis, and Mantis was more organically part of the movie anyway. He knew that Warlock would appear in future Guardians films, and was considered an important part of the cosmic side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The character's future introduction is hinted at one of the film's mid-credit scenes, and Gunn noted that Marvel gave him some blowback for introducing the Warlock teaser because they felt fans would believe the character would be appearing in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, which was not the case. By including the scene, Gunn even promised Marvel he would use his social media presence to clarify for fans that the character would not be seen in either of the Avengers films. After the film was shot and marketed, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 premiered in Tokyo on April 10, 2017, and was released in the United States on May 5, 2017 as part of Phase 3 of the MCU. At the box office, it grossed more than the first film, with $863 million worldwide, making it the 8th highest-grossing film in 2017, and also outgrossing its predecessor. And the film received praise for its visual effects, direction, soundtrack, humor, and performances, but some critics deemed it inferior to the original. and it once again typically received a nomination for Best Visual Effects at the 90th Oscars. And a sequel, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, will be released on May 2023, and it had a Disney Plus holiday special last year. Now, as for my reaction, well, I remember really loving the first Guardians of the Galaxy film back in 2014. I was excited for this when I saw the trailer before I went to see Rogue One. So once the movie released, I went and saw a Saturday 10 p.m. showing my nearby IMAX, because I believe these Guardians of the Galaxy films are meant to be watched on that format. And I gotta say, while it's not as good as the first film, it's still a good sequel nonetheless. Technically speaking, this film is actually set during Phase 2, so I'd consider it more of a Phase 2 film, and it's also taking place seconds after the first film's ending. The first film was literally one of the most unexpected, and that was one of the most colorful space films that was ever watched. Youthful, energetic, fantastic visuals, and so the same followed it in the sequel as well. Not the same good, but stood to the expectation of the first film's success. This story does not have a great adventure in the galaxy, a simple quest, but a thrilling action adventure. Now this accidental space game is set to meet the creator. And it's time for Peter to meet his father Ego, because he's still upset with his mother's death. His encounter with his father is not as expectedly smooth. On the other side of the story, Rocket, Yondu, Baby Groot make their escape from captivity, and they end up on Ego's planet where the rest of the film is going to take place. Being the Guardians of the Galaxy, their fight against whoever threatened the safety of the universe once again tested with their strength as a team. And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 offers so much thrills and an awesome cinematic experience, and the action starts right from the opening scene, and it doesn't end up until the last 2 seconds of the film. And people behind the first movie, just knew how to make not to make the audience bored, and they succeeded at that. The plot is interesting enough to keep you engaged, and the pacing never really drags, even with the movie's long duration. The soundtrack just fits right into its place, and it really held the background quality, and providing the best classic songs. And the movie is also really humorous, and I found it just as funny as the first one. Like this film and the previous film too, they remind you of those 80s buddy cop action films where people are just banded together for one common cause, and they share a love-hate relation with each other. And like many of those kind of films, because of which I have a special connection with this film too, within the first few minutes, I was already liking this film like the first film. The jokes were even quite good. This part even has a few more adult jokes too. And then by the time I got towards the climax and the main crux of the story, I began to think were the gold people necessary, the Sovereign? I thought that they just weren't necessary, they just kind of felt forced. And there was a small part where Fast and Furious is mentioned because the family part Drax says. And if more focus would have been given on some characters like Rocket or Gamora, I would have probably loved the film even more than the first one. And even though I liked the jokes, some of the jokes were a bit on the too much side, the emotional component was quite missing. This is what made the film less likable than the first part, but the VFX and sets were quite massive and great, and some of the stunts were awesome. This is the first one, and it's probably the first one in the MCU where you have more than just 1 or 2 post-credit scenes. So that was also very nice. Another great part of this movie was most definitely would have to be the acting. When it comes to the acting, Chris Pratt was again fantastic as Star-Lord. No one could replace him with any other actor. Zoe Saldana is still badass as Gamora. Dave Bautista showed another side of the character Drax, the comic side, which was definitely very enjoyable. Michael Rooker was even great as Yondu. And in fact, I think I really liked the Yondu as a better role in this one. Here, I think they did develop Yondu way better here than they did with the first film. So I like he got a bit of his own arc. And Palm Clementine was even a great, funny addition to the cast as Mantis, and heck, you even get a cameo from Sylvester Stallone even, as one of the original Guardians of the Galaxy members, like from the original comics here. So it was nice to see him cameo in a brief role here, so. And Kurt Russell was also great as Ego. And then my favorite scene in the movie, well, I think in this movie, it definitely would have to be Yondu using his fin to control the arrow. And this time the scene ran for quite a long time, as we see Yondu, Rocket, and Groot walking down the road escaping. I mean, that scene just hits a different level of awesomeness to it, and then when they're in the hyperspace and they faces look like they're just about boggly and high on, and it kind of feels like you're high on drugs. It was also a pretty funny moment. And then the cinematography, the stable and funny story, the brilliant colors, the James Gunn added to this movie are just fabulous, and the comedy is totally on point. The action scenes are great. The music, well, you can listen to Guardians of the Galaxy's Volume 2 songs over and over again. They all work perfectly in the context of the movie. And the movie had beautiful visual effects and a plot that kept the pace which the audience hanging on the edge of their seats. The script had some room for improvement, mainly in the exchanges between Peter and his father. His father's monologues were kind of cliche best and kind of left me wanting more from the writers in an attempt to make and an attempt was made to make the soundtrack that would equal the one we all loved in the first movie, but they fell short. It had many good songs in it. It wasn't quite the hit the last one was with it. Usually all the Marvel movies have great visual effects, and this one's just no different. Like, the opening scene with the young Kurt Russell looks very believable, the movie knows how to use color with great effect, and its setting for the Sovereign looks spectacular, and the bright gold, bold blue and white backdrop, and considering the movie has lots of characters of all different colors, each of them seem to stand out beautifully. And now, while I like the characters of Peter Quill and Gamora, the down characters in this movie were probably Yondu and Nebula, like two characters that were just okay in the first movie. Here they get more backstory and they get character motivation in this movie, and it humanizes them to make them more sympathetic characters that can be redeemed. Another thing that probably wasn't as good as the first movie though was the use of music, like I've already mentioned. Like, the opening song with Baby Groot dancing around was great, but some of the other songs just seemed just there in the background and didn't really add anything to the scene. I like the first movie where the songs would enhance the scenes. Only a few minutes in Volume 2 do that well. And while Pratt, Star-Lord, and Peter Quill was without a doubt the big star in the first movie, every other main character here gets almost as much screen time as Star-Lord this time, and much better development. And they all get their moment to shine in Volume 2. Like, Sylvanas Gamora's established herself as the leader, the brains of the group. Bautis's Draka's clumsy but most amusing character, and Cooper's Rocket is also phenomenal and knows how to kick ass, while Diesel's Baby Groot, well, doesn't seem like an all too difficult job for Diesel, who only says like 3 words throughout the entire movie. What is there not to love about Baby Groot? In the eyes of me, like Baby Groot literally kind of just became a baby to maximize the merchandise sales, but I have really thought he worked very good here. In fact, I think he's probably my favorite edition of Groot, behind the original movies. He certainly is definitely the most fun in this one. And I couldn't wait to see what other shape he would be for the next few appearances he'd be in. Well, we all know what he was. It wasn't as great as this. Every character also gets more depth, which is very rare in most superhero movies. And I can't say that. And while I don't enjoy every single MCU movie, and some of the kill-offs weren't just that great. Like, when they killed off characters like Coulson, Quicksilver, and even temporarily Jackson's Nick Fury, I didn't really care. Well, technically Fury was not really dead. Coulson and Quicksilver just felt momentarily, didn't really give much of an impact with their deaths here. If any at all, like, it was pretty clear that some of the Avengers like Iron Man and Captain America were more important than, for instance, Thor or Hawkeye. But Guardians of the Galaxy 2 doesn't make the same mistake. They're a bunch of misfits that complete one another. Secondary characters like Nebula and Yondu also play important, interesting roles. In the first chapter, they were just mere additions. Even newcomer Mantis also plays an interesting part of Volume 2. Like, with this one, they actually made a death actually matter here. Like, Yondu's death was probably the first time that death actually had an impact in the MCU for a change. Like, in each Guardian actually holds their own pretty well in this film, some better than others. Like, Star-Lord and Ego had great chemistry on screen, and I felt Kurt Russell was a great addition to the Marvel Universe. While Gamora didn't really have much of an input in this movie, but she has her own heartfelt moments with her sister Nebula, and Drax has his funny moments with Mantis, and Rocket begins to connect more with Yondu, so they realize they have more in common than initially thought. I really enjoyed Yondu's parts in this film, and I thought fleshing him out more works very well this time around, instead of him just being a secondary character. Baby Groot is adorable throughout the film from start to finish and brings very funny moments to the movie, and the characters Gunn chose to introduce are interesting due to compelling backstories, based on some creative, touching, and funny character moments. And watching action scenes featuring characters you love and care about adds so much drama and weight to the action and makes the movie all the more enjoyable. The action itself is creative, fun, and other times hilariously over the top. With any great superhero film, there comes the need for a compelling villain. And Marvel doesn't have an amazing track record as far as villains goes. Like, remember the villain Thor: The Dark World or his plan? No, me neither. What about the incredible emotional depth that was given to the bald guy from Ant-Man? Oh, wait. With great belief, I can say the Guardians actually faced off against a much more compelling, interesting villain in Volume 2 than in the original. His plan and motivation may be considered abstract and pretty vague, but to its credit, the movie does take its time to set up the big bad plan reveal, and by that point, you're on board with it. Volume 2 takes a lot of time to develop a lot of the characters, and this time effort pays off at the end, with an incredible final act and emotional ending which actually did leave me in tears in the theater. And now we can get more onto Baby Groot here. because my horror special mention needs to go to Baby Groot. He steals every scene he's in. He's adorable, funny, badass, and also very charming, and an absolute fan favorite and a toy seller for sure. And once again, Yondu gets such great character development. His story arc is very touching, unexpected, and emotional, and it's a shame we had to see him go in this movie because I would have liked to see him play more of a role here. But honestly, unlike a lot of worse kill-offs, his death in this movie actually surprisingly felt earned. It didn't feel pretentious at all. It actually felt like a good send-off, and Yondu actually died doing something useful. However, the reason this movie is not as good as the first one is because of these iffy qualities. Like, one of the reasons Guardians of the Galaxy is so beloved is because of its tight story. It's based on the same universe as the Avengers and its heroes, but it didn't need to tie into other films so firmly. Just an Infinity Stone and a cameo by Thanos were enough to establish a connection. What we got was a solid standalone film that had a compact story with colorful characters that didn't need to set up 6 other films. Can you name another Marvel film that had the exact same advantage of the MCU? Because of the fact that Volume 2 pays so much attention to character development for a lot more characters than just the Guardians. The story just loses focus and a firm grip on the plot. Although the backstories given to our characters are pretty cool and interesting, it's the way they are conveying that makes the film lose some steam. There are a lot of exposition and not all of it through well-written dialogue. They refer to some tight flashback scenes and a lot more show, a lot less tell. And then there's the unfortunate need to set up plot points and characters for future Guardians films. All this makes for a bit of a messy film with some pacing issues, and Gunn clearly tried to balance all these characters and plot points and hasn't some unscathed out of the ordeal. It's weird he went down this route because story-wise, the film was even more disconnected from the Infinity War than the first one, so setting up such material for a sequel is an odd choice because it feels so unnecessary. And another problem I have with this movie, much like Cody Leach and Sean Sandler's problems with this movie, I did not like. This movie had so many mean-spirited moments and mean streaks as well. Like, this is supposed to be a sequel to one of the most beloved MCU films and continues some beloved character story arcs, and they had to put in so many mean-spirited moments and mean-spirited jokes. Really having a laugh right now, Gunn? I also even find the clip post-credit scene of teasing Adam Warlock pointless, because it actually felt like they were going to introduce the guy in Infinity War Endgame, but never did that at all, and are literally saving him for the pretentiously depressing Volume 3 instead. That's going to kill off a bunch of Guardians. I even feel like we did not even just need a character teasing the end credits at all. We could have literally just did without the Silver Ring after this movie for good. However, despite the bad qualities, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is still another fun sequel that is worth watching and buying for fans of the original movie and MCU fans as well. In the end, if you loved the first Guardians of the Galaxy film and want to see these characters continue their story arcs, this is definitely worth a watch and a buy for any MCU fan and any Guardians of the Galaxy fan for sure. Anyway, that's it for my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. If you're wondering how I'm going to rate Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, here's how I'm going to rank this movie.
So overall, if you love the first film and want to see the team continue their story arcs, then I would highly recommend watching and buying this movie for your collection for sure. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I'm going to give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 an 8 out of 10.
There we go. That wraps up my review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And so, we all know what's going to be next for the MCU. Our next review of the MCU is going to be, usually Homecoming is the one that came after this movie, but I'm not going to be reviewing the Spider-Man films for the Infinity Saga. That's going to be for the Spider-Man review series in May. So, we're going to be skipping right ahead to Return to Asgard. And this was the day Ragnarok happened. But until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.